goes retrograde every single year, and it's a very sacred and mystical time if you want to really get into depths of self, enter your underworld, and do some deep soul transformation. It's not for the faint-hearted, it's for those that truly want to elevate to the next level and really merge with their higher self in a way. So in this video, I'm going to talk about Pluto going retrograde. When does it go retrograde? How long it lasts? What does this mean for us? How can we work with Pluto going retrograde in a mindful, conscious, and mystical way? And how will it impact every zodiac sign? I'm going to go through all 12 signs. So I'll leave all the chapters down below and let's get into it. Pluto's going retrograde on May the 4th, and it's going to remain in retrograde motion for a good couple of months until October the 13th. I mean, what a day for Pluto to go direct. You can't make these things up. Everything happens in just such a divine way. Even the dates speak volumes. Now, Pluto is one of those planets that, although it is much more smaller in size in comparison to the other planets, its potency is just unmatched. What it provides, the depth, the soul, the magic that it provides just cannot be compared. The wisdom, the healing, it's just on a whole nother level. So when Pluto goes retrograde, this is another opportunity, another cycle that allows us, that gives us a chance to go inwards and to confront some of the more darker, deeper aspects of self. So we're looking at things that need to be transformed, that need to be healed, that need to be addressed, that need to be balanced, that need to be cleansed and detoxed. Anything that is dark in nature, anything that is just very deep and intense and mysterious in a way. Pluto really helps with a lot of our soul ancestral patterns. You know, Pluto is a mysterious energy, and a lot of what we go through repeatedly in this lifetime, it's really a repetition of what we've been going through in many, many other lifetimes. And until we do not acknowledge, address, confront, and do some form of moving on or some form of transformation or healing on that particular pattern or theme or emotion or karma that you know constantly repeats in your life, until we don't do something about it, it just kind of stays there. It just lingers on until the next experience, the next lifetime, and so on and so on. And of course, that's if you believe in the concept of past lives and reincarnation. So Pluto kind of sheds light onto those deeper, mysterious, darker, intenser emotions and themes and experiences that come up in our life again and again. For example, now this is a very basic example, it could be like a relationship. You're constantly meeting or getting into a relationship with somebody who is just perhaps not faithful, or is a pathological liar, or is very manipulative. That's a very Plutonian theme. That's a very Plutonian energy. And I'm not saying that impacts and affects everyone. I'm just giving a very basic example. And this would, of course, depend on an individual's chart. But, you know, Pluto can make you go deeper, learn why you're kind of like constantly getting into a relationship or a situation with such a person. It can shed light on the secrets or the lies that were being kept from you. It could present you with nothing but the truth that can sometimes be difficult for people, but nonetheless, it is enlightening and it brings you closer to truth. And then it can also provide its esoteric ways and forms of healing and moving on and, you know, doing the deep ancestral work. So Pluto is just such a sacred energy. It is very much feared. It's very much often put in a bad light because it's known as a malefic. But somebody who's very Plutonian dominant, you know, I know how much it has aided and supplied so much magic, wisdom, and healing into my life. And in that it has been through going to depths of self, has been through entering my own underworld, has been through really seeing the truth for what it is and learning from it and becoming wiser from it, and in doing that Plutonian deep ancestral soul work so that I can clear not just lifetimes of a theme passing on and on and on, but also clearing the ancestral lines as well. It's just so magical, potent, and powerful. In fact, just those words that I'm using to define Pluto are just underestimating how magnificent Pluto is and can be when you embrace the energy into your life, the divine expression of the energy, because of course there are many shades of each planet. So with Pluto going retrograde, it's not going to impact every single person the same way because, like I said, we all have our own unique charts. However, if you do have planets from 0 to 3 degrees of Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or Scorpio, you may be impacted the most by this retrograde energy because those are the degrees it will go back into and then move forward in as well when the retrograde cycle has completed. So if you have the first 3 degrees of any fixed signs, especially also Aquarius, because Pluto is in Aquarius, then you'll be impacted and then feel the impact of Pluto's intensity and then Pluto's desire for deep soul transformation the most. And then through that cycle and period of Pluto being retrograde, you may be more in touch with darker parts of self, deeper parts of self, really trying to dig deeper and deeper, find answers, you know, reevaluate, reanalyze everything like over and over and over again. With Pluto being in Aquarius, the big theme here is freedom. You know, freeing yourself from emotions, memories, themes, experiences that have been repeating again and again and again. Aquarius, the ultimate, the highest expression of Aquarius is freedom. You know, many starseeds believe that they are here to free Earth from the density or free their own self from the constant repetition of reincarnating and again and again and again. And then that's Pluto in Aquarius. Freedom, freeing yourself from things that are keeping you stuck, freeing yourself from the past, freeing yourself from like toxic situations, toxic relationships, freeing yourself from patterns and habits that no longer serve you or your highest good. And how to work with that Pluto energy is to embrace it and not to fear it. You know, the more you fear it, fear, false evidence appearing real, the more you block yourself from doing that deep, sacred shadow work. The more you listen to the whispers of Pluto, the more you listen to what your gut, your instincts, your nervous system is communicating to you, the more you'll get closer to the truth, the more enlightened you will become. And it's not always easy listening to your nervous system. You gotta be a really good listener. You gotta let your ego take the back seat, and you really gotta tune in to the most sensitive, deepest parts of self, especially the heart, the portal of the heart, to really listen to what is going on, you know? And then Pluto whispers sacred wisdom all the time, you know? You just gotta be very observant, and like I said, be a good listener. So now let's get into Pluto and how it will impact every zodiac sign. This video is particularly for your rising sign, although if you're aware of astrology a little bit more, let's say for example you're an Aries rising, Pluto for the majority of yous will fall into the 11th house, but perhaps, you know, depending on your degrees, it may not. So if you know about the area of life Pluto is currently transiting, check out the timestamps, because not only will I write Aries rising, but then I'll also write Aries rising or Pluto in the 11th house to make it a little more easier. And if you have no clue about what I'm talking about, perhaps a one-to-one session will benefit you more if you want to learn more about astrology in your chart. So I'll leave all the details down below, and let's get into it. Hey Aries, Aries rising. let's take a look at how Pluto retrograde may impact your zodiac. So take a look at your chart and take a look at where Pluto is, because depending on either your rising sign or your sun sign, it may be placed in a different area of life. If you are an Aries rising, most likely Pluto will be transiting your 11th house. This can, of course, vary depending on house systems, but for the majority, it could be the 11th house. That's why one-to-one sessions are much more detailed and personal, because it's all about you, whereas when you're doing a horoscope for a zodiac sign, a collective, it can vary, okay? So just bear that in mind. So whether you're an Aries rising or Pluto is currently transiting your 11th house, this reading is for you. So with Pluto retrograde in the 11th house, there could be a karmic time, possibly with people that you are friends with, that you are connected with in some sort of way, whether that be in a social setting, whether that be through mutual friends, acquaintances, whether that be part of a group or community you're a part of, or people you collaborate with. This could even have to do with like social media, for example, as well. That could be a possibility. This could be a karmic period for the next couple of months where you have to kind of reassess friendships, groups, people, your social life, social circle, people you're acquainted to, people that you are familiar with, that you know through either a group, community, something you're part of. This may be a time where a lot of things that you've been feeling for quite some time now come right up to the surface, and you got to dig a little more deeper and get really into the underworld and your own underworld, and figure out, who is genuine, who you see yourself kind of growing and evolving with, and who has played their role. And it's time to kind of like remove yourself, or kind of end a certain relationship, or you come to some really serious realizations about other people. This could be a karmic time. Does it mean it's going to impact and affect every single Aries the same way? No, it doesn't. It just depends on your chart. But with Pluto retrograde in the 11th house, this is karma with other people that you can be in a situation that you have to resolve. Sometimes it's not even a physical thing. It's more of like a internal thing where you're coming to some serious realizations, or you're processing a lot, or you're getting a lot of epiphanies, or just a lot of reality checks, and it's kind of like a mental, emotional, spiritual, internal process, an internal transformation. During this time, you could also meet people who are very Plutonian, that have a very Pluto Scorpio personality that you have to also balance the scales with, or find some resolution with. Pluto makes us dive into the depths of self. It makes us dive into our underworld. So it rules over the most serious aspects of life, and Pluto retrograde is one of those cycles that brings anything that is buried, anything that is kept a secret, anything that is hidden to light. And it gives us the opportunity to reflect, to process, and to transform. So that is one of the manifestations that can occur with Pluto retrograde. Another manifestation is, because the 11th house also rules over hopes and visions and wishes for the future, it can make you really get into, or take more of a serious soul approach towards what you want to accomplish, or where you are headed, and what you see yourself moving forward with in terms of your hopes and wishes for the future. Pluto may make you define that, or redefine that, should I say. Redefine that is in alignment with soul, spirit, self, your authentic self. And it may even make you much more spiritual during this time. Like your hopes and wishes become more soul-centered, become more spiritual, more Plutonian. This could be also a time where you kind of process not only where you're headed in terms of hopes and wishes for the future, but also in terms of like your sense of spirituality, especially if you're part of any type of spiritual group or community. It may make you reevaluate that, reassess that, redefine what that means for you, and what that looks like for you in the future, because Pluto is all about the depth, it's all about soul, spirit, so it can be very esoteric and very spiritual. So for a lot of Aries rising, or those that have Pluto transiting their 11th house that are affected by this more personally, especially if Pluto is hitting any of your other planets in your chart, this could impact friendships, groups, social circles, social networks, communities, and also your hopes and wishes for the future. So Aries rising, take care, take it easy, and I'm wishing you all the best with this. Hey Taurus rising, let's take a look at Pluto changing into retrograde motion and how that may impact your zodiac. Now, this section of the video is not just for Taurus risings. It depends on your chart and what house system you're using, because you may also have Pluto currently transiting your 10th house or even re-entering your 10th house. So let's get into it. Now, Pluto will go retrograde in the sign of Aquarius on May the 4th, and it will remain in retrograde motion until October the 13th, so for a good couple of months. Now, retrogrades are just normal. They happen all the time. Pluto retrograde happens every year, so it's nothing to freak out about. In fact, embrace it, because it allows you to really dive deeper than ever, okay? Now, for you, Pluto retrograde is impacting the 10th house of career, goals, ambitions, achievements, and also authority. So with Pluto retrograde, if there were any karmic people you met that were in authority or an authoritative figure, or anyone that has a lot of power, if you went through some sort of situation or had something going on with that person, that energy may come up again to be resolved. Does that mean that it's going to happen for everyone the same way? Absolutely not. That's just a very minor manifestation of Pluto in the 10th house, is meeting people, connecting with people, especially in the workplace, regarding your career, or people in in a higher position that have a very Pluto type of presence, Pluto type of aura, that are very powerful. This could mean, going head to head with somebody in terms of a power struggle or an ego battle. So that's something to be careful of. With Pluto retrograde, it makes you dive deeper. It makes you go inwards and get into the details and get into what's really going on. So there could be a possibility of having to resolve some type of situation to balance out the scales with somebody who's very Plutonian, or someone you have like a Pluto relationship with, someone that's really powerful or in authority. This could even mean doing some self-work or doing some shadow work on your own Pluto presence, on your own Pluto traits, how you present yourself to others, how you present yourself to the world, the public. Maybe Pluto will make you go into your own underworld and then kind of figure out and understand your own Pluto traits and working on your own power. Another basic manifestation of Pluto being in retrograde is, of course, going over career goals and ambitions. Really diving in deep, digging in deep, coming to some powerful, profound realizations, understanding on a much more deeper level, or trying to come to an understanding of what is it that you really want from your 10th house, from your career. What are your goals? Not the goals that other people have kind of either influenced you with or imprinted on you, but more so, what is it that your soul, when we're looking at Pluto, we're looking at soul self. We're looking at the most raw, authentic version of you. What kind of goals have you really set for yourself? Was it something you have to redefine? Do you have to redefine your goals, redefine your career, redefine what motivates you, and what are some of your ambitions? Perhaps Pluto will kind of add more of a soul-centered spiritual flair, where it helps you redefine your goals in your career in a more spiritual sense. Perhaps you want to do something that is much more Plutonian and much more Aquarian in nature, such as something that is more spiritual, something that is more of service to others. That's more the Aquarian energy. That is progressive, innovative, that has freedom. Perhaps that's something that you're trying to figure out. That is Pluto. Pluto wants you to go deeper. It's all about depth. So some of you, especially that have early Aquarius or early Leo, even Taurus and Scorpio, I'm looking at 0 to 3 degrees, because those are the degrees that Pluto will retrograde back into. Those of you that have any planets in those signs and those early degrees will perhaps get impacted by this the most, where you have to really dig deeper, get real with yourself. With Pluto retrograde, it's a lot of getting in touch with soul and spirit, getting in touch with the more raw aspects of self. Also diving into the depths of soul, and perhaps even doing a lot of shadow work in this area of life. And then through that shadow work, doing a lot of transformation, making a lot of room, making a lot of space for what you really want. This could be even a time of decluttering, releasing. You know, that's Pluto. Pluto helps us to, even though Pluto, from one hand, has a very possessive energy and it won't let go and it's very stubborn, from the other hand, the other manifestation of it is letting go, releasing, cleansing, doing a deep spiritual cleanse, a deep spiritual detox, letting go of anything that is not of service, does not serve you, that is not good for you, that is not in favor of you. Pluto can help you let go. And it can be intense. It can be a very kind of like a dark night of the soul type of experience, but Pluto is all about depth. Pluto is all about authenticity. Pluto is all about soul, rawness, and really diving into your true self, and then bringing everything up that needs to be revealed, that needs to be acknowledged, that needs to be worked through, that needs to be transformed. So with Pluto retrograde in your 10th house, it's all about career, goals, ambitions, and could also mean going over some past situation with somebody either in your career that you connected to through your career or work life, or even somebody who's in an authoritative position. This could even have to do with family dynamics as well. I mean, when we're looking at the 10th house, opposite the 10th house is a 4th house. So there could be some family dynamics or authoritative figure, parental figure. You can even do a lot of ancestral work from this area of life. It all depends, of course, on your chart. So Taurus, Taurus rising, or if you have Pluto transiting your 10th house, wishing you all the best. Hey Gem Rising. Let's take a look at how Pluto going retrograde may impact your zodiac. So this part of the video is for Gemini risings, but also depending on your chart and the house systems you use, you may also have Pluto transiting your 9th house. So let's get into it. Now, Pluto retrograde happens every year, nothing to freak out about. And this year, Pluto retrograde happens in Aquarius, and it's really just only going to be in Aquarius, whereas last year was a bit of a different story where Pluto was in Aquarius, but it retrograded back into Capricorn. So we're going to really feel that Aquarius energy, and it kicks off on May the 4th and ends on October the 13th. So for a good couple of months, Pluto is going retrograde. Now, does this mean that it's going to impact everyone the same way? No. It really depends on your chart. Take a look at if you have any early Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or even Scorpio in your chart, because that may reveal more about how intense this Pluto retrograde may be for you, especially if you have 0 to 3 degrees of the fixed signs. And if you don't, then it may not be that intense. I mean, sure, you can feel it, but it won't be that personal either. It really depends on your chart, and the other transits you're going through and the aspects. So there's just so much more that goes into it. But an overall interpretation with Pluto going retrograde, it's going to impact your ninth house. So Pluto is now in your ninth house, and it's going to stay in your ninth house. And what is the ninth house? So when we're looking at the ninth house, we're looking at the area of life that rules over the mind. We're looking at the higher mind. So we're looking at researching, we're looking at philosophies, we're looking at studying, we're looking at also expanding the mind. So this is the area of life that can reveal also like your philosophies in life, your beliefs in life, even like your spiritual beliefs in life. That could be like a key manifestation, especially with Pluto retrograde. With this area of life, we're also looking at travel, we're looking at foreign places, we're looking at movement and adventure. So this for you is a very profound area of life, because as a gem dominant, travel, moving around, researching, learning, the mind, it's super pivotal and profound in your personality and perhaps even in your life. And with Pluto retrograde, we're just getting a little more deeper in this area of life. We're getting deeper than ever. Now, Pluto is already a deep energy. It takes us to the depths of self. It takes us to the shadows. But when it's retrograde, it actually becomes a little more intense. It makes us dive even more deeper. Typically, retrogrades have to do with past situations, and this could be like a past experience or a past situation that can come up that needs to be either resolved, released, let go of, or transformed and shifted in some way or form. This could have to do with beliefs, philosophies, your spiritual beliefs. Perhaps they may undergo a significant transformation where, perhaps you have some certain beliefs, but you're questioning them, or you want to learn more about them. And then through this next couple of months with Pluto retrograde, you decide to get more deeper and learn and research and explore on just another level, a very Plutonian level, where you're not afraid of getting much more deeper. And this could be also very spiritual, very mystical, very esoteric as well. This could be a time of deep reflection, deep reanalyzation, deep realizations, and redefining what you believe in, your spiritual beliefs and philosophies. For some, this could be just a deep transformation when it even comes to the mind, when it comes to wisdom. We're looking at the crown chakra here. It could be a deep purge, deep transformation of some sort. When it comes to foreign places, when it comes to travel, perhaps there's somewhere that also makes you, if you visit some place or you have travels in the in the works, this may be a time where you also feel just your mind shifting, as if that travel or that significant place you go to visit kind of like pushes you or shifts you just to a whole nother level, or where you even get like a deep spiritual, mystical experience. It could be deja vu, it could be an epiphany. I've heard people a couple of times say how, they were once out on a travel and they went to a certain place and they had like a really profound spiritual experience that they didn't even expect. It just kind of happened. And with Pluto here, there's a lot of those realizations. With Pluto here, you could have a lot of those experiences as well. Pluto is a very psychic type of energy, so that could be one possible manifestation, perhaps something you explored in the past and it kind of calls you again because there's something to realize, there's something to balance out, there's something to learn, or a profound experience has to take place to push you or transform you to another level. That's quite possible with Pluto in the ninth house and Pluto going retrograde. But the key kind of theme with Pluto in the ninth house in general is really the mind. We're looking at the crown chakra. We're looking at wisdom. We're looking at philosophies and spiritual beliefs that is so strong with Pluto, like the mysticism as well. So Gem Rising, wishing you all the best with this transit. Hey Cancer Rising, let's take a look at how Pluto retrograde may impact your zodiac. So this part of the video is for if you have Cancer rising or if Pluto is transiting your 8th house. This all varies chart to chart and also depending on house systems. Now, Pluto in the 8th house, I mean, it's at home. It is at home, and when it's in the 8th house, it's doing the most. It's doing the most spiritual cleansing, the most spiritual healing. Just so much deep, magical, mystical, spiritual transformation occurs here with Pluto in the 8th house. Now, the 8th house has a very spiritual, mystical side to it, but then it also has a very human, mundane side to it as well. So, the 8th house can rule over, when we're looking at it from the mundane aspect, shared finances, shared resources, taking relationships to the next level. Think of it as an extension of the 7th house. Also, when it comes to intimacy, this could be even like raw emotional experiences that you've had, life experiences. This is also the area of life when we tap into the mystical and esoteric stuff, is where you can have very deep, profound spiritual experiences. This is where you can feel your raw psychic energy as well. I mean, it's such a convoluted area of life. Now, when Pluto is in retrograde, especially in the 8th house, this is revisiting past experiences, revisiting past karma that needs to be resolved, that needs to be balanced, that needs to be released or let go of or transformed. Okay, this is really deep and spiritual and enlightening, because whenever Pluto is in the 8th house, regardless of what occurs, the intensity of the situations you experience with the 8th house, after it's all been said and done, there is so much enlightenment you accumulate through those life-changing experiences. And when Pluto is in retrograde, there's a lot of revisiting, like I said, a lot of reflection, a lot of attention goes to the inner realm. There's a lot of focus that goes into the inner realms when it comes to the psyche, when it comes to feelings, emotions, intuition, what you're feeling, what you're picking up on, your 5 senses, psychic senses. They start to become even more profound with Pluto retrograde. And this may even be a time where you feel inspired or motivated to dig deeper into the chambers of yourself. And through going more deeper, through focusing more on the inner realms, through revisiting perhaps past situations. This could even have to do with relationships, especially because after the 7th house, we have the 8th house as an extension of all that the 7th house is. You may feel inspired and motivated to go more deeper into even relationship stuff and how that's impacted you, or even like analyze or really get deeper with certain patterns or habits or certain archetypes of relationships and how everything is kind of like connected. Perhaps this even inspires and motivates you to do some like deep spiritual ancestral work. That is very Pluto retrograde. Now, does that mean it's going to impact everyone the same way? No, absolutely not. Everyone's chart is unique and different, so of course it's going to mean something different for everyone. Now, if you have early Aquarius in your chart, like I'm looking at 0 to 3 degrees of Aquarius, even Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, then this Pluto retrograde may be more profound for you. It really just depends on your chart. So take a look at your chart if you have any of those planets, because if you do, then the intensity of Pluto will be felt much more. And the themes of Pluto will also be more profound and significant. But when Pluto is at home in the 8th house, it's doing some deep soul digging and soul searching. It's like the dark night of the soul. It's enlightenment. It's spiritual transformation. It's mystical. And even though it could be very intense, the 8th house is not something that you could take lightly, because it's one of the most intense areas of life. It really is, with Pluto, especially in retrograde motion there. But there's so much magic, mysticism, and enlightenment that can also be accumulated through this area of life. So yeah, it can be a very deep spiritual time for you. And take it easy, when you need to take time out and rest and rejuvenate. Listen to what your body is saying. Listen to your nervous system. And I'm wishing you all the best with this transit. Hey Leo, Leo rising. Let's take a look at Pluto retrograde and how it may impact your zodiac. So Pluto goes retrograde on May the 4th until October the 13th. It will be in retrograde motion for a good couple of months. This is not going to impact every single person. If you have a look at your charts, and if you see any planets in either Leo or Aquarius, or even Scorpio and Taurus from 0 to 3 degrees, then sure, Pluto may have a much more intenser impact on you and relationships, especially in the next couple of months. However, that doesn't apply for everyone, and everyone's chart is unique, so just be aware of that. With Pluto in the 7th house in retrograde motion, this could bring up things, situations, experiences, emotions from the past, karma from the past, especially if you've been in a relationship for a while, or if you're seeing somebody. Anything that has been buried, any secrets, anything you've kind of brushed off, anything you have chosen to kind of push in the closet, I guess, can come out during this time. Pluto retrograde is all about, let's bring out all the things that need to be addressed, that need to be acknowledged, that need to be revisited, that are just lingering around. Let's address everything. Let's come to a resolution. Let's heal. Let's transform. Let's release. Let's let go, so that we're not carrying any heavy stuff with us and it's just like lingering around. It's all about a deep spiritual cleanse. So if you've been hiding anything in your relationship, or if things haven't been working out, or things have been rocky, or if there's been some disagreements, conflicts, not seeing eye to eye, any type of situation in your relationship that can be worked on, that, needs to be addressed, that needs to be resolved, this is a time where it can come up with Pluto retrograde. Pluto, like I said, it's all about, let's get down with the truth. Let's be authentic. Let's be real. Let's stop hiding away and brushing off the past when it's still kind of impacting the relationship. So if you're in a relationship, a marriage, even like seeing somebody and it's really serious, Pluto can get really deep with you and make you redefine your relationship, make you even reanalyze and then get just so real about your relationship. Whether you want to or not, like Pluto just has that effect where it can make everything come to light. So it can be a very spiritual time with not just a relationship, but with just the relationship you even have with yourself. Because remember, this area of life, the 7th house is like a spiritual mirror. It can reveal so much about ourselves through meeting other people, through having interactions with other people, through the relationships we have. It mirrors back to us a lot about ourselves and the past. And with Pluto retrograde, it could even get deeper and then get into like not just karmic relationships, but karmic soul ties and past lives and, you know, relationships, emotions, experiences, patterns that are continuing and then repeating. Now, the seventh house is not just romantic relationships and marriage. It can also rule over other people, like anybody you're in like some type of partnership with. It could rule over just anybody you have strong ties with, karmic ties, or anybody you kind of have conflict with, anybody you've had any type of conflict, disagreement, or even confrontation with. Pluto in the seventh house can even like it can be a manifestation of actually somebody who embodies Pluto, who has a lot of Plutonian personality traits, who has a very Plutonian plays a Plutonian role in your life. That could be a manifestation as well, where, you know, that energy comes into your life. But in a way, even though we have Pluto in Aquarius and it's really just dipped its toes in Aquarius, so this is this new energy that you're having to kind of go through, and of course it's going to impact everyone at different times. But with Pluto going retrograde, it's like going into the past and bringing things from the past that need to be resolved, acknowledged, or shifted in some form that impact the future, that reveal what the future can look like. So depending on your chart, take a look. If you have early Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, this may impact you more profoundly, but this is about relationships. It's about other people. It's about whom you may have conflict or confrontation with, and it's about redefining, reflecting, and then really doing some deep spiritual transformation regarding the seventh house. So wishing you all the best. Hey Virgo, Virgo rising. Let's take a look at how Pluto retrograde may impact your zodiac. So Pluto goes retrograde on May the 4th, and it will be in retrograde motion for a good couple of months until October the 13th. Now, retrogrades happen every year, so does Pluto retrograde. The interesting thing about Pluto retrograde this time around is that it's going to remain in Aquarius. Last year, Pluto was in Aquarius, and then it retrograded and re-entered Capricorn. But this time around, Pluto has settled in Aquarius, even though it's just kind of like dipped its toes in. It's settled in, and it's going to remain in Aquarius. And for the majority of Virgo risings, this will be the 6th house. Now, the reason why I say majority, depending on your chart, and if you're viewing this from your sun, moon, or rising, or depending on house systems, the interpretation may vary. So take a look at your chart and actually take a look at what area of life Pluto is transiting so that you know what area of life is going to be impacted. But for the majority, it will be the 6th house, and the 6th house has to do with daily life and routines. It has to do with habits, your lifestyle. Can also have to do with health and wellness, well-being, mind, body, soul, spirit, especially when we're looking at the 12th and 6th house axis. But the 6th house also has to do with work and colleagues as well, how you are of service to others. So there's a couple of different things that the 6th house rules over, which means it can impact different areas of your life as well. Pluto retrograde can impact health and wellness, mind, body, soul, and spirit, in the sense of needing and feeling the desire and then feeling motivated to really transform your health, really get healthy, do like a lot of cleansing, a lot of detoxing. Perhaps you want to transform how you keep fit, how you keep healthy. That could be something major where, because Pluto is going retrograde, you're going more inwards. You're having to kind of reflect in this area more. You're having to reanalyze this area, perhaps even dig deeper, research this area, or this part of your life where you're having to get more real and serious and listen more to the nervous system, listen more to what your body is saying, be more aware, be more conscious of how you are keeping healthy, how you are keeping fit, how you're keeping mind, body, soul, and spirit in alignment, healthy, thriving. Pluto retrograde may make you address all of that I just spoke about. This could also impact work. Like I said, this could be a time where you're reflecting on your work, where you're reanalyzing, perhaps wanting to restructure, redefine this part of your life. Perhaps you want to do something a little more Plutonian, or do something that is more soul-centered, that is more purposeful. That can sometimes be the more driving forces of Pluto, even be in a more powerful position. Another manifestation can be actually having to deal with somebody who's very Plutonian in the workspace. This could be a colleague, someone who has a lot of power, or, something to be more mindful. The shadow manifestation is somebody of the dark side of Pluto, is somebody who's more controlling. Like, that's something to watch out for. But with retrogrades, it makes us take a look at things that need to be addressed, that need to be revealed, that need to be resolved. This could be a matter of the past or something that has been long overdue. So a lot of different parts of this area of life can impact you. I mean, sure, it can manifest very differently for every single person, but this is more of the overview of Pluto going retrograde in the 6th house. Okay, even in the sense of like your daily life and routine and how that is structured, that may be going through a huge transformation. That's the key word with Pluto retrograde, is transforming, whether that being releasing, letting go, healing, detoxing, cleansing. There's a transformation occurring to reach the best version of yourself. You can even see this area of life as self-improvement in a way as well. So Virgo rising, wishing you all the best with this transit. Hey Libra rising. Let's take a look at how Pluto retrograde may impact your zodiac sign. Now, this isn't just for Libra dominance. This could also be if Pluto is just in your 5th house, and it can vary depending on house systems. Now, let's talk about it. So Pluto goes retrograde on May the 4th, and it will be in retrograde for a good couple of months until October the 13th, right into Libra season. Now, the next couple of months with Pluto retrograde is not going to impact everyone the same way. Pluto is a slow-moving planet. It's known as a generational planet, so it doesn't impact every single person the same way. In fact, this Pluto retrograde is really hitting those that have early Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. So I'm looking at 0 to 3 degrees of the fixed signs. If you have any planets in those signs from 0 to 3 degrees, and this Pluto retrograde may be more profound for you. And if it's not impacting you that much, then it still has its effects, but it's just not as intense as those that are really under the influence of this transit. Now, for the majority of you, Pluto retrograde will be in your 5th house. And the interesting thing about this retrograde is that Pluto is now really in Aquarius. Last year when Pluto was in Aquarius and it went retrograde, it re-entered Capricorn. So it went from your 5th house into your 4th house. So for some of you, this may have been a time, especially those Libras that have kind of like the late degrees of Libra energy in their chart, this may have really impacted your personal life, home, family dynamics, even personal relationships when it comes to security, and even if you wanted to get a little more esoteric, ancestral deep shadow work, diving into the depths of your shadows and really doing that transformation. However, now that Pluto is in the 5th house, the energy is completely different. Now we're looking at self-expression. Now we're looking at joy. Now we're looking at creativity, your creational energy, the inner child. We're looking at even romantic relationships. So with Pluto retrograde, there's more of a dissecting this area of life. Perhaps you're really reflecting and reevaluating and reassessing, what does happiness mean to you? What does true happiness mean to you? Not what you've been told is happiness, not what you've been influenced by others, not what you have perhaps been in the illusion of. What is real happiness to you? What is real joy? What does that really mean for you? This is a time where you're really going to be digging deep of what really brings you alive, what brings you happiness, what connects you to the inner child. And this could even be a time where you could do some shadow work, like inner child healing. That's major with the 5th house, especially with Pluto's influence here. Perhaps even going through, reflecting on your childhood and thinking about the things you went through, perhaps Plutonian themes that you went through, and looking at how that's really affected you into adulthood, into your present, and reanalyzing, reflecting, and trying to really come to a conclusion of, how certain situations, certain experiences impacted you, and then how you can change into the next version of yourself, the more transformed version of yourself. That's how Pluto retrograde can also have an impact on you. It could also have an impact on your creativity. This is a time where your creativity may even undergo a more emotional, soul-centered expression. Perhaps it's got more of a darker, serious tone to it. And this could also impact relationships as well, even though the 5th house is more about playful relationships, dating, romance, the more fun, exciting first stages of a romance or relationship. It still has a very profound impact. Now, as a Libra dominant, Venus being your ruler, relationships are very profound and significant throughout your life. And with Pluto retrograde, this could be a karmic time in relationships where perhaps you had something with another person who is probably a little Plutonian, or there are Plutonian themes in a relationships, and then there's kind of like still some words that need to be spoken, or there's like karma. Then when I say karma, I just mean where balance is due. That energy can re-enter your life, and you could perhaps go through that relationship until it comes to a resolution, or until it comes to a conclusion. Sometimes how you have those really profound relationships and they suddenly end, or suddenly something happens and you don't get any closure. Well, this could be a time where you do get that closure. So Pluto retrograde impacting your 5th house. Hey Scorpio rising. Let's take a look at how Pluto will be impacting your zodiac, going retrograde on May the 4th all the way till October the 13th. So good couple of months. Now, this part of the video is not just if you have Scorpio rising, but it could also be if Pluto is currently transiting your 4th house. Now, this can vary depending on house systems. So, Pluto retrograde, especially if you are Scorpio dominant, Scorpio rising, this is more significant for you because Pluto rolls over you. And in the 4th house, it's more deeper, it's more personal. We're really getting into the depths of soul. We're getting into the depths of the darkness. We're really getting into the underworld. When you take a look at the astrological wheel, the 4th house is right at the bottom, is right at the base. This is where the roots grow. A lot of people just think and see the 4th house as, the mundane aspect of life, which is home, family dynamics, and security and stability, where you go to feel comfort, feel at home. But it has a much more esoteric perspective and a meaning to it too. This is where you can do a lot of soul shadow work, ancestral work, if you're into that. And many Scorpio dominants will be, especially with the influence of Pluto, because you want to get into the root of everything. You want to understand everything in its core and beyond as well. And with Pluto retrograde, now Pluto just in general in the fourth house, in the sign of Aquarius, this is impacting home life, family life, personal relationships, security, stability, safety, your safety net, what makes you feel at home. Even when it comes to like authoritative parental figures, and this could vary whether it's the matriarchal aspect of your family or even the patriarchal aspect. It can vary. However, with Pluto here, it's really bringing out the more deeper themes and emotions and experiences that you have had in this area of life, at home and family. It's bringing out all the shadows, all the things that are kept buried, secrets, anything that needs to come to light. Pluto retrograde is just focusing on it more now than ever. That's what retrograde does. It makes us go even more deeper. It makes us take our time to really unravel and kind of dissect what we may already know, but what we perhaps need to get even more detailed about, even more forensic about. That's a kind of Pluto effect. Now, this Pluto retrograde is not going to impact every single Scorpio rising, or even if, Pluto is in your fourth house, but it's going to impact those that have the first degrees of either Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, Taurus, so the fixed signs, so 0 to 3 degrees. And that's because Pluto is retrograding over those degrees. So if you have those degrees in your chart, 0 to 3 degrees of either Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, Taurus, and any planets, should I say, actually, in those degrees, and Pluto will have a much more profound impact, and this Pluto retrograde will mean something much more deeper for you. So unraveling the shadows, going over some intense Plutonian experiences, going over deep emotional experiences that you've had within home dynamics, family life, personal relationships, even when it comes to how secure you feel, what it means to feel at home, what does home mean to you, those more deeper feelings and emotions coming to light. But because it's in Aquarius, this has a lot to do with freedom, breaking free from ancestral patterns that have not been serving you. When Pluto is in retrograde, especially in Aquarius in the fourth house, it wants to break free. It wants to break the chains. It wants to break the patterns. It wants to break the habits. It wants to be free. It wants to be a free spirit. It wants to be independent. It doesn't want to be tied down anymore from what it's been used to. So this would show a lot of deep ancestral shadow work. And when it comes to ancestral shadow work, it's really another reflection of you. We are our ancestors reincarnated. I mean, that's one perspective. That's one approach to Pluto retrograde. So this could be a very emotional time regarding home life and family life, but it's going to push you to make a transformation that is of service to the next version of you. And all that you have gone through, all that you have emotionally and psychically picked up on, absorbed, it's time to break free from that. That is Pluto retrograde in the fourth house in the sign of Aquarius. So wishing you all the best with this. Hey Sag rising, let's take a look at Pluto retrograde impacting your zodiac. So Pluto goes retrograde on May the 4th all the way until October the 13th. So for a good couple of months. Now this part of the video is if you have Sag rising or if Pluto is retrograding into your third house. Now, depending on house systems, it can vary. So just bear that in mind. Now, this Pluto retrograde in Aquarius is not impacting everyone the same way. It will have a more intense, profound impact if you have 0 to 3 degrees of either Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, or Scorpio in your chart. So any planets in the fixed signs within 0 to 3 degrees. And the reason why is because Pluto is retrograding over these degrees. So that kind of amplifies the influence and the impact and manifestation of Pluto retrograde. Now, Pluto retrograde happens every year. It's nothing to freak out about. And for you, Pluto in Aquarius is in your third house. So this is quite interesting because the third house is not an emotional energy. It's not a personal energy. It's the mind. It's how we learn. It's how our thoughts process, how we process information and data. It's also how we, from one perspective as well, how we work with like technology as well. This is like our masculine brain. This is the left sphere of our brain, the left hemisphere of our brain, and it has to do with movement as well, moving and ideas and communication, whether that's written or verbal. This is also about moving around in your neighborhood, your environment, your daily travels and commutes. So when Pluto is here, it's quite fascinating because Pluto is taking a much more intense approach than usual when it comes to research and learning and expressing yourself through communicating and ideas. It's getting much more deeper. It's getting much more spiritual. It's getting much more mystical. Like with Pluto retrograde in this area of life, you may reflect and reassess and reanalyze and even dissect your thoughts and how you think and how you speak and, you know, your communication, how you articulate how you feel or how your ideas is just gonna become so much more sharp and profound, because with Pluto retrograde, it doesn't miss a beat. It's going over what it already knows, but now it's just going over the details and dissecting everything. You could actually have more of a desire to research the more taboo aspects of life, or the more spiritual, esoteric, hidden aspects of life, or you want to kind of uncover and unravel mysteries. Like that may take an interest for you during Pluto retrograde. Even like how you write, especially if you're into like writing or expressing yourself through words, whether that's again verbal or nonverbal, whether that's through writing or speaking, you're gonna feel like you want to be more expressive, really express from a more soul-centered place. And even though the third house is the non-emotional area of life, and so is Aquarius, is not very emotional at all. It's very detached and very masculine. However, Pluto has a very feminine side to it. You know, even though we look at Pluto as Hades and it has a masculine archetype, it has a lot of feminine qualities to it. You know, we're looking at the counterpart as well of Hades. We're looking at Persephone as well. You know, they have this kind of mirror aspect to each other where they ignite each other's qualities. And with Pluto here, it can really make you express yourself more profoundly, more deeply, from a more soul-centered perspective. It perhaps wants you or makes you want to have more kind of soul-centered conversations, deeper conversations, more spiritual conversations and interactions. You know, that's what Pluto in the third house, especially going retrograde, may bring out of you. But then also it may push you to make a deep transformation, to let go or release or shed things that don't serve you, whether that's certain things that you have learned, the way you think, the way you learn, the way you research, the way you communicate, the way you express yourself, even like your day-to-day life and travels. It may push you to make a transformation or let go of things that are not serving you, habits, patterns, or the unconscious, bringing that to light so you can transform in this area of life. Hi Cap Rising, let's take a look at Pluto going retrograde in your second house. Now this part of the video will be for Capricorn risings, or even if Pluto is impacting, transiting your second house. Now this varies depending on house system, so just bear that in mind. So Pluto goes retrograde on May the 4th all the way until October the 13th, so for a good couple of months. And it happens every year, nothing to freak out about. Does it mean it's going to impact everyone the same way? Not really. It depends on your chart. So if you take a look at your chart, take a look at if you have any planets in Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, especially between 0 to 3 degrees, because those are the degrees that Pluto is going to be retrograding over. So if you have any planets in those degrees, so 0 to 3 degrees of the fixed signs, then Pluto's impact will be more profound and have more of an intense flair to it. Other than that, if it's not really impacting you that personally, it will still have its influence. It will still, have its manifestation, but not as intensely as if it was impacting you more personally. Now, Pluto in Aquarius, going retrograde in the second house. So the second house has to do with self-worth. And typically we find that from money, we find that through the material realm, through resources, and that's all that the second house also rules over as well. Finances, money, resources, what you own, the material realm. And that is also very important for a Capricorn or Capricorn dominant. That's what brings you security. That's what makes you feel secure. That's what makes you feel stable, and has a lot to do with self-worth as well. So with Pluto retrograde, it's really pushing you to make a deep transformation, especially if it's impacting you more personally. And this is where you can do a lot of shadow work in this area of life, where you can do a lot of releasing, letting go, detoxing, cleansing, like a deep spiritual cleanse, even regarding the second house, the material realm. This may really make you kind of slow down in your thought process and reflect and reanalyze and kind of dissect the material realm and what you own, and what kind of makes you feel good about yourself, what makes you feel worthy about yourself, and what really does security mean to you? What does self-worth really mean to you? With Pluto, it's not about the material, even though from one perspective, sure, Pluto is about power, and it can even have to do with wealth as well from one perspective. But from the other side, the more deeper spiritual side, it kind of teaches us spiritual wealth. It kind of teaches us that there's certain things that money cannot buy. And with Pluto retrograde in the second house, that could be like a form of a spiritual awakening that one can undergo. It could be a spiritual transformation as well. And it can really help you to look at everything from a bird's eye view. And it can make you feel more spiritually connected to this area of life. It can make you feel more soul-centered when it comes to this area of life. And that can just activate and ignite just so much within you. And it may not be the most smooth, blissful process, because, some things that we're so used to that, start to change or start to change within us, that's a process. That is a deep process. And that is why, Pluto's in retrograde from May the 4th all the way until October the 13th, because it needs time. Some patterns, some habits, some things coming to light, the unconscious coming to light, shadows coming to light, and processing them and moving through them and transforming them. That all takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So that's where Pluto retrograde can have its influences, really making you think and feel more deeply about this area of life. It can also make you look at where you're more controlling in this area of life, where you want more power in this area of life, and it can make you go through the what's, the whys, and hows as well. And it's a very deep spiritual process with Pluto retrograde. So that's where the transformation can occur. So I'm wishing you all the best with this transit. Hey Aquarius, Aquarius rising. Let's take a look at Pluto going retrograde in your sign. And that's going to happen on May the 4th all the way till October the 13th. So for a good couple of months. Now, Pluto going retrograde will be impacting your first house, especially if you're an Aquarius rising. However, this part of the video is not just for if you have an Aquarius rising, because depending on house systems, the interpretation can vary. So whether you have Aquarius rising or Pluto is transiting your first house, the effects of Pluto and its intensity really vary. And it depends on what group of people that Pluto is impacting that year. Because Pluto is such a slow moving planet, it doesn't impact everyone the same way. So this year around, because Pluto is in the early stages of Aquarius, and I mean early. So if you look at your chart and look at if you have any Aquarius planets or angles, or even planets and angles in either Leo, Scorpio, or Taurus from 0 to 3 degrees, then Pluto's manifestation impact will be more stronger. And that's because Pluto is going to retrograde over those degrees. So it's going to re-enter those degrees. And what's interesting about Pluto this year around is last year, Pluto was in Aquarius, but then due to retrograde season, it re-entered Capricorn. This year around, it's fully in Aquarius. I mean, even though it still dipped its toes in Aquarius, it's settled in Aquarius now, meaning it's not moving out of Aquarius until the next 20 years. So buckle up, okay? Because this is a ride. And listen, I'm going through this ride with you all because I have Aquarius energy very strongly in my chart. I have an Aquarius stellium. I mean, sometimes I feel like I have more than a stellium because I just have too much Aquarius in my chart. So listen, I'm going through this with you, okay? So I get it. Now, Pluto retrograde. So this is a time of deep reflecting, realizations, reanalyzing, reassessing. Pluto retrograde makes you get even more deeper. It makes you focus on the things you already know, but the things that require more attention, more detail, more focus. And because it's in your sign and impacting your first house, this is all about you. The first house is all about you. This is the ego. This is the mind. This is your sense of self. This is your identity. This is also where you find life purpose from, what you want out of life. Because, right after the ascendant, the ascendant is where we take our first breath on earth, right? And then our whole entire chart is created. And then when we get into the first house, that is developing our unique self, our individuality, our identity. And it also kind of carves the path for the entire chart and also reveals what we want out of this lifetime. And with Pluto in Aquarius or Pluto in the first house, freedom and independence is a major one. Okay, a major one. So this is a time where you may be doing just a lot of deep self-work, self-reflections, self-assessing, and really getting to the core of who you are, your identity, and what you want out of life, and what perhaps needs to be let go of, what needs to be released, what needs to be transformed in order for you to be exactly who you want and to make what you want out of this life. And freedom, like I said, is a key word here. Key word. So it's breaking from a lot of what you're used to. Saying goodbye to a lot of what you're used to. Saying goodbye to the old version of yourself, because this new version of you is emerging. And in the next couple of months, especially if Pluto retrograde is really impacting you, you're going to go through some deep self-realizations, and Pluto might take you to the underworld, your own underworld, meaning getting into the shadows, the core of your emotions, experiences, and really make you analyze and realize and gain a lot of wisdom and truth, so that you can start this process of really letting go of things that do not serve you, so you can become who you're born to be, really. So this is a very profound time for you, and it's major for you because Pluto is in your sign. So take it easy. A lot of what you're going through, the changes that are occurring, embrace them. So Aquarius rising, wishing you all the best. Hey Pisces rising, let's take a look at how Pluto going retrograde may impact your zodiac. Now this part of the video is for Pisces rising, but this could also be if Pluto is transiting your 12th house, and that can vary depending on house system, so just bear that in mind. Now Pluto will go retrograde on May the 4th all the way till October the 13th. So it happens every year, and Pluto every year goes retrograde for a good couple of months, and it's nothing to freak out about. Now, this doesn't mean that Pluto retrograde is going to impact every single one of us or every single person in zodiac, because that's not the case. It typically, because it's a slow moving planet, it typically only impacts a few people at a time. So this year around, it's impacting those that have 0 to 3 degrees of Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus. So take a look at your chart. If you have any planets in the fixed signs between 0 to 3 degrees, this will impact you more profoundly. And that's because Pluto is retrograding over those degrees. And what's interesting about Pluto retrograde this year around is last year Pluto was in Aquarius, but it retrograded back into Capricorn. But this year around, Pluto is fully in Aquarius. Even though it's just dipped its toes, it's settled in Aquarius, and it's staying in there until the next 20 years. So let's get into what does Pluto retrograde mean for you if it's impacting your 12th house. So, the 12th house is a non-physical. It's a very secluded area of life. I mean, this is the area of life that rules over a lot of the more deeper aspects of self. Like, this is soul. This is where you find soul. This is where you find, now this of course depends on belief systems and perspectives, but it can also rule over karmic ties, where balance is due, karma that is accumulated over lifetime. So past lives is also a huge theme with the 12th house. The 12th house can also rule over spirituality, spiritual beliefs, your relationship or connection with source or the divine or the universe, whatever God, whatever name or belief that you have regarding a higher power. And then through the spiritual aspect of this 12th house, you can get into like deep trance states, meditation, but also it's kind of like a blurry line between that, because this area of life can also rule over escapism. This is where you can find how you escape from reality, because this is the non-physical realm. And although this area of life rules over a lot of the mystical elements and the magical esoteric elements, it still has it's kind of like mundane aspect where, as humans, when we want to either feel ecstasy or bliss or euphoria, what do we do for that? Or when life perhaps gets a little tough and challenging and pushes you to the edge of where you want to escape, like that, those are some of the themes and experiences you can find from the 12th house. So when Pluto is retrograding this area of life, it's really making you kind of reassess, reanalyze, and reflect on all that I just mentioned. And it can open a can of worms. It can make you go over some karmic experiences. It can make you go over a lot of past life, deep-rooted experiences and karma that has been going on for lifetimes and lifetimes. And presents you with an opportunity to do a lot of that shadow work, to navigate through the shadows and the depths of self, and go into the underworld and find the wisdom and find the truth and realizations to push through to the next version of self, to transcend from the density, from the darkness, from the shadows that you've perhaps been kind of repeating. If you look at your life, what are some of the most strongest themes? You can find that in the 12th house as well, because most likely some of our strongest themes that we're repeating, it's a lifetime kind of thing. Like they're repeating again and again. Now, of course, it depends on belief systems and perspectives. So Pluto retrograde in the 12th house can make you really dive deep into a lot of shadow work. It gives you the opportunity to cleanse, detox, and purge. That's a major one, a huge purge. Now, because Pluto's in Aquarius, it's all about freedom. So bringing freedom into your life. So it's not going to impact everyone the same way. It really just depends on your chart. Take a look at where 0 to 3 degrees of Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus fall. If you have any planets in those degrees and signs, and this manifestation will be more profound. So wishing you all the best, Pisces. So I hope you enjoyed this video all about Pluto going retrograde. If you did, show this video some love, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and I will see you very soon.